What if I told you that everything you learned in school about the beginning of human civilization might need to be rewritten? Today, we're diving into one of history's greatest enigmas. A civilization so advanced, so sophisticated, that modern scholars are still scratching their heads trying to figure out how they knew what they knew. The ancient Sumerians. Around 4500 BCE, the Sumerian civilization began to flourish in southern Mesopotamia. What makes them remarkable is the sudden appearance of a complex urban society. Within a relatively short time period, the Sumerians developed cities, organized religion, centralized government, and most importantly for our story, writing. The Sumerians invented cuneiform writing around 3400 BCE. This wasn't simple picture writing. Cuneiform was a sophisticated system using wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay tablets with reed styluses. These clay tablets, when dried or baked, became incredibly durable. This is why we have over 500,000 Sumerian tablets preserved today, sitting in museums and collections around the world. Here's what makes these tablets so valuable. They provide us with the earliest written records of human civilization. We're not guessing about Sumerian life. We're reading their own words. They documented everything: business transactions, legal disputes, mathematical problems, astronomical observations, medical treatments, religious practices, and epic stories. The sheer volume and detail of these records are what set Sumer apart from other early civilizations. While other ancient peoples left behind monuments and artifacts, the Sumerians left behind a library of human knowledge. Let's talk about what archaeologists and historians have actually found in these tablets. The British Museum, the Louvre, the University of Pennsylvania Museum, and institutions around the world house collections of Sumerian tablets. Most of them are administrative records, receipts for barley, records of livestock, accounts of temple offerings. They paint a picture of a highly organized society with complex economic systems. But among these everyday records are tablets that reveal sophisticated knowledge. Take mathematics, for example. The Sumerians used a base 60 number system, which is why we still have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour today. This system, called sexagesimal, is actually more versatile than our base 10 system for certain calculations because 60 can be divided evenly by many numbers. In the 1940s and 1950s, researchers studying mathematical tablets made fascinating discoveries. One tablet, cataloged as Plimpton 322 and dating to around 1800 BCE, contains a sophisticated table of numbers. Scholars debate its exact purpose, but many believe it shows knowledge of mathematical relationships that we associate with the Pythagorean theorem, over 1,000 years before Pythagoras lived. The Sumerians also left detailed astronomical records. Tablets known as the Enuma Anu Enlil series contain observations of celestial bodies, tracking Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, and Saturn. They documented lunar eclipses, planetary positions, and star patterns. These observations were made with the naked eye, yet they were remarkably systematic and accurate. The Sumerians divided the sky into the 12 constellations of the zodiac, a system we inherited through the Babylonians and Greeks. They calculated the solar year and created a calendar that balanced lunar months with the solar year using intercalary months, an innovation that required careful astronomical observation. One of the most discussed Sumerian texts is the Sumerian King List. This document, compiled around 2100 BCE but drawing on earlier sources, attempts to list all the kings of Sumer from the beginning of kingship. The tablet begins with a fascinating statement. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. It then lists the first kings with extraordinarily long reign lengths, some spanning tens of thousands of years. Modern scholars interpret this in several ways. Some believe these incredibly long reigns represent dynastic periods rather than individual rulers. Others suggest they're mythological or legendary figures that represent the distant past before reliable historical records. A few researchers propose that the numbers use a different counting system that we don't fully understand. What's interesting is that after a point described as the flood in the text, the reign lengths suddenly become more realistic, ranging from a few years to a few decades. This shift coincides roughly with the period when we begin to have archaeological evidence for specific rulers. The king list includes rulers we can verify through other sources, like Gilgamesh of Uruk, who appears to have been a real historical figure around 2700 BCE, though his deeds were later embellished in the famous Epic of Gilgamesh. This mixing of legendary material with verified history is common in ancient texts. The question historians grapple with is, where does legend end and history begin? And what historical memories might be preserved, however distorted, in the legendary material? The Sumerians left behind extensive religious and mythological texts that give us insight into how they understood the world and their place in it. The Eridu Genesis, sometimes called the Sumerian creation myth, is one of the oldest creation stories known. It describes how the gods created humans to work the earth and serve them. The text includes an account of a great flood sent to destroy humanity, with one man being warned to build a boat and save himself, his family, and the animals. This flood story is remarkably similar to later versions in the Epic of Gilgamesh and the biblical story of Noah. Scholars believe these later versions were influenced by or derived from earlier Sumerian sources, showing how stories and traditions passed between cultures. The Atrahasis epic, composed in Akkadian but based on earlier Sumerian material, provides more details. It describes humans being created from clay mixed with the blood of a slain god, given intelligence and the breath of life, and put to work cultivating the earth. The gods eventually grow frustrated with noisy humans and send the flood, but one man is warned and survives. These texts tell us how the Sumerians conceived of their relationship with the divine. Their gods, called the Anunnaki, were numerous and organized in a hierarchy like a royal court. Each city had patron deities, and temples were seen as the literal houses of these gods. The term Anunnaki literally means offspring of Anu, referring to the children of the sky god Anu. In Sumerian belief, these were the major gods who decreed the fates and controlled natural forces. They weren't seen as all-powerful or perfectly good. They had conflicts, made mistakes, and their relationships mirrored human society. Beyond mythology, the Sumerian tablets reveal sophisticated systems of law and governance that influenced civilizations for thousands of years. The earliest known law code comes from the Sumerian city of Ur, created by King Ur-Nammu around 2100 BCE. The Code of Ur-Nammu predates the famous Code of Hammurabi by about 300 years and shows that the Sumerians had developed complex legal thinking early in their history. This code includes laws about property rights, family relations, assault, false accusations, and slavery. What's remarkable is that it often prescribed monetary fines rather than physical punishment, a surprisingly progressive approach. For example, if someone broke another person's bone, they would pay a specific amount of silver as compensation. The tablets also reveal that Sumerians had courts where disputes were heard and judged. They had contracts written and witnessed, with copies kept for legal protection. They understood concepts like debt, interest, inheritance, and partnership. Women in Sumerian society had certain legal rights that varied by social class and time period. Some tablets show women owning property, running businesses, and serving as witnesses in legal proceedings. High priestesses of temples held significant power and wealth. The administrative tablets give us detailed pictures of the economy. We can see how grain was distributed, how workers were paid, and how temple economies functioned. One archive from the city of Lagash contains thousands of tablets documenting every aspect of temple administration over several decades. Let your mind drift as we explore what Sumerian tablets tell us about their understanding of medicine and the natural world. Medical tablets from ancient Sumer show that physicians used hundreds of remedies derived from plants, minerals, and animal products. One tablet, dating to around 2100 BCE, is the oldest known medical prescription. It lists treatments for various ailments using ingredients like thyme, mustard, salt, and snakeskin. Sumerian physicians understood the importance of cleanliness. They washed wounds, made bandages, and created poultices. They performed surgeries and set broken bones. While their understanding of anatomy was limited compared to modern medicine, they observed symptoms carefully and kept records of what treatments worked. The Sumerians also made detailed observations of the natural world. Agricultural tablets show they understood crop rotation, irrigation techniques, and seasonal planting cycles. They created one of the first farmers' almanacs, with instructions for each month's agricultural activities. Their mathematics went beyond simple counting. They solved complex problems involving areas, volumes, and proportions. Tablets show calculations for building projects, land division, and commercial transactions. They understood fractions and could solve what we'd recognize as algebraic equations. The sophistication of Sumerian mathematics is particularly evident in their architecture. The ziggurats, massive stepped pyramid temples, required precise calculations and engineering. The ziggurat of Ur, partially reconstructed today, shows remarkable architectural knowledge in its construction. Perhaps the most touching aspect of Sumerian tablets is that they reveal the human heart hasn't changed much in 5,000 years. The Epic of Gilgamesh, with its earliest versions from Sumerian sources, explores themes that still resonate today: friendship, loss, the fear of death, and the search for meaning. Gilgamesh's grief over his friend Enkidu's death drives him on a desperate quest for immortality, only to learn that immortality belongs to the gods, and that humans must find meaning in their mortal lives. We have Sumerian love poetry, including poems written by or for priestesses. One beautiful poem describes a bride preparing for her wedding, filled with hope and nervous excitement. Another laments lost love. These poems could have been written yesterday. The emotions are universal. Sumerian proverbs collected in tablets for students learning to write show wit and wisdom. We are doomed to die, let us spend. We will live long, let us save. Or, the fox could not build his own house, so he came to the house of his friend as a conqueror. There are also ordinary letters. A father writing to his son complaining about his laziness in school, a merchant's assistant explaining why a shipment is delayed, a woman writing to her brother about family property. These glimpses of daily life make the ancient Sumerians feel real and relatable. As you relax deeper into rest, let's consider why these ancient tablets continue to matter in our modern world. First, the Sumerian records represent humanity's first step into history. Before writing, human experience was preserved only through oral tradition, which changes over time. With writing, the Sumerians captured a moment in time that we can still access directly. When we read a Sumerian poem or legal dispute, we're not reading an interpretation, we're reading their actual words. Second, studying these tablets has given us insights into how civilizations develop. We can see the evolution of social structures, economic systems, and cultural values. We can track how writing itself evolved from simple pictographs to a flexible system capable of expressing abstract ideas. The Sumerian influence on later civilizations was profound. The Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians who followed built on Sumerian foundations. Through them, Sumerian innovations spread throughout the ancient Middle East and eventually to Greece and Rome, shaping Western civilization. Our modern world still carries Sumerian fingerprints. The 60-second minute, the 12-month calendar, the zodiac, the idea of written law codes, urban planning principles, and educational systems. When you divide a circle into 360 degrees or use a time measurement, you're using a Sumerian innovation. Third, the tablets remind us that ancient peoples were not primitive or less intelligent. If you enjoyed this journey through ancient history, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let me know in the comments which ancient civilization you'd like us to explore next.